What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be doing another 2023 NBA mock draft video, and in this video I'm actually going to be talking about who I think should of course go from pick 11 all the way to pick 14, completing the lottery. If you guys would like to go and check out picks 1 through 10, I will of course be linking them in the description down below. That way, if you go and check out that video, you'll be all up to date with who I have going in the first, in the lottery. And of course, just in case you're wondering why I didn't take a certain player with one of these picks, it might have just been because he has already been drafted to a different team with a higher pick. So to make sure you're all up to date, I do highly recommend going and checking out my full, picks 1 through 10 on the mock draft before you do watch these picks 11 to 14. Again, eventually I will of course be combining it all into one big lottery mock draft video, so I'm pretty excited to do that. But I guess without further ado, with the 11th overall pick, we have the Orlando Magic, who now have their second lottery pick. Of course, they do at the time of making this video have pick number 6, and again, I've taken, of course, Asar Thompson with that pick, who I think will help out quite a bit. But with taking Asar Thompson, you definitely don't really, I think, fix a lot of the shooting issues that the Orlando Magic do have. And that's why with this 11th overall pick, I figured it's time to bring in a good shooter. And I think Grady Dick kind of actually fulfills all that. It's really interesting looking at Grady Dick because there's a lot going on with him other than his extremely awesome last name. But of course, we're looking at a 6'6" small forward from Kansas, who we know has been compared to Reggie Miller before. Yes, NBA legend Reggie Miller. And it's just like insane how good this guy is at shooting. It's being said that Grady's a versatile wing who is an extremely high level shooter and secondary scorer with intriguing upside. He's one of the best three-point shooters in college ball and also has elite NBA skill that comes with that. He's a fluid athlete who really knows how to move without the ball and find room for his shot. Again, when I look at Grady Dick, I do like to also compare him to, a couple of guys who are already in the NBA. One kind of with his shooting ability and body type being like Corey Kispert on the Washington Wizards. And you might be thinking, look, Kispert's a good player, but he hasn't really panned out to be exactly maybe a pick 11 type of player, which you're going to get out of Grady Dick. But the difference is between the two is Grady Dick is, I think, a 20 times better scorer than what Corey Kispert is. I think when we look at Kispert, he was always just an elite shooter that might have had potential on the scoring end. But we know with Grady Dick, this dude can turn into a scorer and could potentially be a nice shot creator, I think, in the NBA as well. So, look, his first couple of seasons, he might definitely be a really nice three-point shooter for this Orlando Magic team. But I think the potential will definitely be to see this guy, of course, I think, go into being potentially a shot creator as well. And I think that's what you're really hoping, to be. Again, defense is going to be an interesting one. He's not exactly extremely long for his height. We're looking at a 6'8" wingspan, which is only just bigger to his height overall. Again, his defense, I think, has been pretty decent, but again, converting to that NBA level is going to be, I think, a bit of a question mark. But when we look at this Orlando Magic, who seems like they're already building a really good defense, especially if they take Asar Thompson with their 6th pick. Again, Bankero, I think, will develop into being a really good defender. I think Franz Wagner will as well. And then you got, of course, Jalen Suggs at that point guard, who is already showing he can be a really good defender in the NBA as well. You're looking at something really good. And I think one of the only things missing from this young team is just they've got really no outside shooting. Like, we know Bankero wasn't a good three-point shooter in his opening season. Suggs isn't really that guy from, shooting threes. Markelle Fultz hasn't been that guy either. If they draft Asar, he's not known for being able to be a really good three-point shooter. Franz Wagner can be a really good three-point shooter, and I think will be for quite a bit. He's probably their best three-point shooter. But I think you definitely need to add a dude like Grady Dick who would help out quite a bit, especially off that bench, to maybe come in and have 20 to 25 minutes per night as that shooting guard, as a small forward, maybe even a bit of a small ball at that power forward as well. But just overall being a really nice three-point shooter, and I think spacing the floor out for this Magic team, I think it gives people like Banchero, and if they draft Asar Thompson, to really be able to use the paint area and I think actually have space to work with, because right now the Magic last season looked a bit clustered. We know Markelle Fultz and others just aren't that good at three-point shooters, but I don't think Carter was, as good as he has previously been. Again, he had a really good opening season with the Orlando Magic team from three-point range, and look, it's going to be interesting to see how this, of course, does expand. He was still about a 35% three-point shooter, which is definitely all right. But yeah, it's just, there's only a couple dudes there that can really shoot. Adding a guy like, I think, Grady Dick really spaces out the floor. And look, even a guy like, if they keep Markelle Fultz, if they roll with Suggs, whoever it may be out of those two, gives them more room to work with as well. And I think helps these guys out when it comes to playmaking, because they finally have a shooter to maybe actually kick it out to. Of course, I still think in free agency, you will have to sign a lot. I think a couple more shooters, because yeah, they are one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the league, I believe. I think, yeah, you bring in Grady Dick, he helps out a lot with that, but maybe bringing in some 3-and-D dudes as well in free agency for hopefully a cheaper price. But yeah, again, Grady Dick at pick 11 makes sense, because yes, he's going to be a good three-point shooter. He's going to elevate the team there. But also, you're looking at a guy who could maybe be a shot creator one day, and especially if they have an injury or two, which touch wood, that doesn't happen. But if they do, you're looking at a guy who could maybe, we'll have to see how he goes first, but maybe turn into somewhat of a shot creator in the NBA. But for now, I think he would be a really, really good three-point shooter who would space out the floor for this Orlando Magic team, and I'd very much like to see he and Asar Thompson partner up on the Orlando Magic. Now, moving on to the Oklahoma City Thunder. They have the 12th overall pick, and there's a couple of options that they could have taken at this pick, but in my opinion, I'm going to go with a dude who I think works for them, and a guy that they've drafted similar type of players of before, and that's actually Jet Howard, who is a really, really nice 6'8", I believe, 6'8", in fact, guy who can guard point guard, shooting guard, and small forward. Pretty nice on the defensive end. Some websites have him at 6'7". It's going to be interesting to see where he matches in the NBA, but from what I've heard, you're looking at a 6'8" dude who's a natural small forward who can kind of guard, I believe, the three positions in the NBA. Kind of similar to what they've got right now with SGA and Josh Giddey, who are really, really good at, moving from 1 through 3. And I'm looking at that team and I'm thinking, wow, if you have all those three maybe in a starting lineup at one stage, or just even on the floor together, from point guard to small forward, there's like no one under 6'7". Like that's pretty scary. And I'm looking at Jet Howard here, and it's saying that he's a really nice shot creator on the perimeter, a pretty nice overall scorer who can space the ball. It's being said that a couple of things on his downside are he's not exactly that great around the rim, and he isn't really a freakish athlete. But with OKC, they've got Josh Giddey. Josh Giddey's not really a freakish athlete. I mean, he is to the average person, but in the NBA, Josh Giddey doesn't necessarily stand out exceptionally great. But the thing is, he's got one of the highest basketball IQs out there. And I feel like Jet Howard might be a similar dude, but in terms of not necessarily playmaking, but being a decent shot creator who can shoot the ball. Be looking for another shot creator. I think in their starting five, Giddey could be, but I think they want Giddey to be a massive facilitator in the NBA, who's going to be good on defense and just being another option when they need him. I have a feeling Giddey's like that type of guy to maybe one season average like 10 points per game, but average like 8 rebounds and like 13 assists. Like, that's just the type of guy this dude is, and his basketball IQ is so insane. I think one day he could definitely be one of the best, if not the best playmakers in the NBA. Like, this dude's averaging like 7 assists a game with like not much to work with, and they've really made it work at OKC. They even nearly made the playoffs, which was kind of insane to think. And I think they'll be looking for another shot creator in this draft. I think they'll be going for that. They'll, of course, bring in a couple dudes in free agency and whatnot. They'll still have Chet Holmgren coming back, and I think it'll be really, really interesting. I'm not sure if Jet Howard will start. I think they might go for Lou Dort to start off with, but Jet Howard, to me, could be a guy that gets a lot of shot creating opportunities off that bench. He also looks like a type of guy who might be inserted into the rotation a fair bit when maybe they're lacking on shooting, or what it might necessarily be is just, another. He could even play that small ball power forward, I think, for Oklahoma as well. They've been known to try that out, and I just think it makes a lot of sense. He also helps out with the rebounding. I think it's been known that he's a pretty good offensive and defensive rebounder. And when you've got Chet Holmgren there at your starting center, who weighs about as much as a paper plane. Okay, that might have been a bit disrespectful, but you guys know what I mean. He doesn't weigh that much, and I'm not sure how good he's going to be at rebounding in the NBA. He's going to need help, is what I'm trying to say here. And he's already got Giddey and SGA, who are tall dudes who can help out with that rebounding. But I'm looking at a guy like Jet Howard, who's been pretty good at that as well. So I think Jet Howard fills in a lot of what this Oklahoma City Thunder team need. They, of course, I think, need another shot creator, and they might need some rebounding, right? You bring in that, he's not only just good at shot creating and rebounding, but you're looking at a dude that can shoot as well, space the 3-point line, and just a guy who I think should be able to work pretty well with Josh Giddey and SGA. The only issue about this pick really is, because I don't think the athleticism or anything is going to be a question mark, especially for Oklahoma, because they just don't really care about that. It just shows. The only thing this might be a little bit suspicious to me is I'm not sure if Jet Howard will fall to this pick. Again, there is a chance. He has been, I've been hearing he's been pretty good in these pre-workouts and stuff. He's been training in the off-season, all this stuff, and just working out. And I've been hearing some good things and that he might jump up in the draft. So it could be an interesting one. You're looking at some mock drafts having this dude at 17, some having him at like 8. I'm going to meet in the middle ground, and I think he's kind of perfect for OKC with this 12th overall pick. And I hope they do capitalize on him. I just think he kind of fits in what they are trying to do in the NBA. And yeah, I just feel like that's a scary proposition. If you're looking at a team that's got like 6'8" Josh Giddey at point guard, 6'7" SGA at shooting guard, and 6'8" Jeff Howard at small forward. Wow. if you got a dude a power forward who's like 6'9", and we know Chet at 7 foot, then you've got no one in the starting lineup who's under 6'7". That's a scary team that could flourish on defense, and I think maybe cut some teams up in the future. And I think overall this would be a good pick by Oklahoma, and that's why I've got them selecting Jet Howard with a 12th overall pick. Now moving on to the Toronto Raptors, one of the more interesting teams going into this draft. A team we really don't know what they're going to be doing in free agency and how they're going to be going about this. I've been hearing rumors that Gary Trent Jr. might be getting signed and traded soon. Rumors that OG Anunoby could be getting traded again this season. We've heard the rumors last time. Fred VanVleet, I don't even know if he's going to get signed and traded. I've just been hearing rumors that guy just might flat out just walk. A lot of really interesting stuff going on with Toronto. But at the end of the day, it's unclear about what their future I think is going to be like, especially if they're going to roll a dude like Scotty Barnes at point forward, which I still think they might be looking to do. But in saying all that, if you're going to roll Scotty Barnes at point forward, I still think it'd be interesting to give him another guard. And there's one guy out there who I feel like fits that Toronto Raptors system and how they've previously gone about it. So with the 13th overall pick, I will have the Toronto Raptors selecting Cason Wallace, who I just think makes so much sense for this Toronto team. A 6'3" point guard who I believe has played a bit of shooting guard as well. Seems like a guy who was an absolute elite defender, being compared to Drew Holiday as well. It's being said that Wallace is a 6'3" guard with the ability to go pretty high in this draft. He's an elite defender who is being considered to be the best perimeter defender in the game. He's a menace on the ball and racks up steals at an outstanding rate. He's also been said to be a productive scorer, and he's become an incredibly consistent three-point shooter. And that's what I like about partnering him with Scotty Barnes. If he wasn't a guy who could maybe shoot these threes, I'd maybe say, look, I'm not sure how this duo would go together. But Toronto Raptors, before they had Fred VanVleet at their, I think, point guard, have always been a really, really nice defensive team in the NBA, especially with like Kyle Lowry as their point guard for so long. I just think it'd be awesome if they go back to that role. I think it's what they're kind of setting out to do, especially with firing Nick Nurse, who I think turned into quite a bit of an offensive coach in his career, and I think they want to go down more of a defensive type of style, I would assume. And I think Cason Wallace fits into that. If you're adding a guy who's being compared to Drew Holiday to your team, you're already winning. Drew Holiday is a guy who I believe in the first 4 weeks of this NBA season, most recent season, was like 4th in MVP, especially when the Bucks couldn't lose at one stage. We're looking at Giannis being 1st in MVP and Drew Holiday being like 4th in MVP at one stage. Then we know Holiday ended up making the All-Star game and was just an elite player, I think, throughout most of the season until he cooled down, I think, towards the end of it. But I'm pretty sure at the start of the season, that dude was averaging like 20 points per game on 8 or 9 assists as like the best defender in the NBA nearly. So if you get a dude like that in Cason Wallace, you're just already winning. And I feel like he's a dude who would be able to go to Toronto with no problems, would be able to fit in. And if they hire a defensive coach, then I mean, you're looking at Scotty Barnes and Cason Wallace as your two main ball distributors and facilitators. I'm looking at those two guys and I'm thinking, yeah, incredibly good defensively. And Pascal Siakam kind of went from a bit of a bad defender in that 2021 to 2022 season and turned into a really good defender in the 2022 to 2023 season. I'm not sure how he just flipped that switch like that, but we know Pascal Siakam has become a really, really solid defender, I believe, as well. So if they continue to build this team, Cason Wallace at the 1, I think maybe Barnes will float from the 2 to the 3. Not sure which one he'll be at, probably the 3. Siakam at the 4 and Pirtle at the 5. That team defensively is an absolute rock, and I would be kind of scared to play that if I was an opposing team. So Cason Wallace, look, his defense is awesome, but I feel like I haven't even gotten into the part where this dude could be a shot creator in the NBA, especially if he could become as good as a shot creator as what I think Fred VanVleet had been before this season. Again, he became kind of a shot chucker this season, but before this season, he was a pretty good shot creator. I think that's going to be a really, really awesome thing, and just being a really good three-point shooter. Now, I'm not exactly too sure how Wallace is going to be with the playmaking. I've heard some say that he still needs to have some work on it, but has the Drew Holiday flashes. Drew Holiday, you know, had years where he was a really good playmaker, had some years where he was, just seemed like more of that shooting guard type of player. But Cason Wallace, even if he's not a good playmaker, to start off with, I'm still looking at, I think, Scotty Barnes being able to take that load as a good playmaker, and I think being able to help out Cason Wallace in that area quite a bit. So I think this, on all accounts, just makes sense for the Toronto Raptors, and I think it's a good pick. So again, with the 13th overall pick, I have the Toronto Raptors selecting Cason Wallace. Now, with the 14th overall pick, we have the New Orleans Pelicans, and this is again, another one of those teams that I think was a little bit hard to pick from. I think a lot of people have the Pelicans picking a lot of different players. They didn't do what they should have this season, but to be fair to them, their best player was out. But there was one thing that I think, oddly enough, stood out from this Pelicans team that they just didn't have towards the end of the season. And other than maybe their center issues that they kind of had a lot with Valanciunas just not really being that guy this year, and Hayes just, again, not that guy. The other thing I think they kind of missed out on was kind of a shot creator. They had Brandon Ingram, and when he was playing, the shot creation was awesome, but again, when he was on the bench or just injured or whatever, the shot creating kind of was as non-existent as my father. It just wasn't there. CJ McCollum tried his hardest, but I believe also battled with some injuries throughout the season. I think there was a lot to work on with this New Orleans Pelicans team, especially when it comes to shot creating. Again, if you had Zion, then it's pretty good, but they just didn't exactly have him. And even if they have Zion and CJ and Ingram all playing together, off that bench, there's just really no shot creation. So with the 14th overall pick, I do have the New Orleans Pelicans selecting Jordan Hawkins, who I believe could be a really nice shot creator in the league, especially off that bench. I'm not exactly too sure if he'll be a starter. Look, he could pull a Devin Booker or Zach LaVine, who I believe both played quite a bit of college ball off the bench and then kind of exploded to the scene as a starting scorer in the NBA. But Jordan Hawkins has kind of been compared to a bit of like an Anthony Simons type of player, a really nice shot creator who has really good ball movement and is a really nice three-point shooter. He's also an extremely good free throw shooter, being about 90% from the line. It's also said that he's a really nice defender that can do that quite well. The only thing that's being said is he's not exactly great with his size. Sometimes plays, a bit smaller, but also sometimes plays a bit taller and just hasn't really found his, I think, middle range, which we know some players just never really do. And of course, it's being said that he might struggle, especially if teams put him at that small forward position. He's only been able to really guard, I believe, guards around his height, not necessarily those 6'7" shooting guards that play small forward as well. So look, that's an issue, but when it comes to his height, he's a pretty good defender there. That can, again, just be a good two-way player coming in with that scoring too. I think when I'm looking at Jordan Hawkins, if he can come into this team and just be another really nice, consistent three-point shooter to have alongside Zion, Brandon Ingram, and CJ, then that's a plus. They've been really trying to do that recently with drafting players like Trey Murphy and whatnot. I just wonder what they're going to do at their center position. With that, it's going to be really interesting to see because Valanciunas just hasn't been the greatest three-point shooter. Jonas Valanciunas only, I think, hit 30 threes this season, which is definitely quite a bit of a drop-off, I believe, of some previous seasons where he shot around 160 to 200 threes or so. Again, he only shot about 100 threes this season, making around 30 to 40 of them. So it's definitely a bit of a worry. I just wonder with this center on the Pelicans, especially if Zion's playing, if they just need a center that can be a consistent, really good shooter like a Karl Anthony Towns, like imagine Cat on this team, or if they're just going to roll Zion at that center. I just can't imagine Zion at center just being so dominant and having Brandon Ingram, Trey Murphy, and like a Jordan Hawkins around him, all as his three-point shooters. That'd be low-key really scary, and that's what Jordan Hawkins, I think, also adds to this team. You're looking at a guy who's not only going to be, I think, a really nice shot creator, especially off that bench, and of course he's got the potential to do it, but a guy who I think is going to be a really, really good shooter. You're not really looking at any bad things here. You're not looking at his defense on taller guys here, because you're looking at a dude who, when Zion is off the court or when BI is injured, whatever it might be, you're looking at a guy who could maybe step into being a really nice shot creator But when those players are healthy, you're looking at a guy who won't be affected by that and will consistently be a good three-point shooter around him. There's not a whole lot of flaws with this pick other than he might struggle with his ball handling and his defense, you know, on taller guys. But if you're playing him on dudes his height at his position of shooting guard, then that's fine. I think it makes sense for this Pelicans team to go for a pick like this, and I honestly really like it. But of course, if you haven't already, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Comment your thoughts and opinions down below. Do you guys agree with my picks or do you guys not? Of course, I would really like to know. Don't forget to subscribe to my gaming channel, my IRL/long channel, and my podcast. All of them will be getting linked in the description down below if you haven't already. But yeah, of course, most importantly, I'd like to hear what you guys think about these picks. Let me know down below. And yeah, leave a like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.